Well, howdy. Welcome to another episode of Schlockaholics, baby. We are here once again with Septum Sin, and we're also joined by Brittany today. Thanks for coming on with us. This
Pleasure
is
to be here.
Brandon's. Yeah, hell yeah. This is Brandon's bonus episode as part of our Cody's voyage across the high seas vacation extravaganza. Each of these guys got to pick an extra movie to cover to kind of make up for us moving the schedule around while he was gone. And old Septum Sin chose Cat Soup. You want to tell us why you chose this thing, man?
Well, I wanted to do something animation wise, but it's harder to do low budget animation unless with Japanese animation unless you're going short. And I did think about other things like some of these 1 and 2 episode series that kind of went nowhere, but I've always wanted to cover something that's kind of in the what the heck is this area, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And I thought this was fun. So I said, you know what, let's cover this and see where it goes from here. After looking it up, it's one of those that gives you kind of an interesting feeling when you start. And then as you watch it more, you learn a little bit more about the background, a little bit more about the author, which is no longer with us for multiple reasons. And one of them, of course, she had passed, but I did not realize that the individual also took their own life, which was a very sad thing. So a lot of that struggle, I think, is really detailed down into this, if you look at it.
Yeah, I think I could see that.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. What's kind of your history with this? When was the first time that you saw it, and how did you find out about it?
So that is a good question. I think it could be one of two ways, actually. Way one would be that maybe, say, Brittany introduced it to me, which would be possible. The other way could be the way I found Dead Leaves, because I think I found this around the time I found Dead Leaves, when I was looking up weird anime. And I knew this name would come up. And it's been pretty readily available on YouTube forever and a day.
Pretty good quality, too. I mean, it's like, I think it's 4:8. No, wait, maybe that was the trailer. I don't know. It looked like it was good quality. Even the trailer is not in bad quality, which we'll run here before we jump into the specifics. But
and the newer version of it is, and of course they upgraded it to 4K, which was great. But and I've got a DVD release of it, which is good. So yeah, it was, and I know when I found it, it was well worth my time because I like weird stuff. I was into Bobobo at the time, and I was like, "There's got to be weirder stuff than that out there," because Bobobo is kind of sane at the end of it all.
I suppose,
Comparatively.
I'll just always smile so hard thinking about those squirrels that were living in his afro, just having marital problems. Just one of the best things ever. So yeah, man, I'm glad that you discovered this because it definitely is an oddity for sure. Me and Brittany will go ahead and give our first impressions after we run this trailer here, but you guys definitely need to get a little taste of what Cat Soup's all about so that the rest of this discussion will make some sense because it's gonna get weird for sure. There it is, folks. Cat soup. So, Brittany, what was your first exposure to this and general first impression of it?
I can't remember exactly if it was brought to me first through college. Being an art student, we got to see a lot of art sort of movies and films that way. So I don't remember if it came through me through college or if it came through me through Right Stuff. Um, because early on, I was part of the anime community back in the 90s. And Right Stuff was one of those go-to places where you would get all your anime. And this was one of those weird ones pitched through them. Um, and I was just like, hey, let me check it out. I think I got it on VHS, either through them or through Blockbuster. I don't remember. But I do remember watching this, and I may have referred it to Brandon, but I don't think I had a copy at the time. But yeah, it's a trippy film, and I mean, it's one of those films where you don't know what you're looking at until you really get a viewing, second viewing, or a third viewing in to understand sort of the story uh, of it, and even how it affects to the lesson that the film wants to tell you. But it's very much an art student project.
Yeah, it feels like it. This was my first time watching it or even hearing about it was for this. And I gotta say, it's one of the fucking weirdest things that I've ever seen. I'd put it right up there with like Eraserhead or Tetsuo the Iron Man, shit like that, of just being begotten, like just random, surreal. Like it's like more like you're looking at some strange painting that turns into a nightmare that just keeps getting worse, kind of a thing.
Oh,
Um,
very much. It's like a Salvador Dali film. If you've ever seen Dali's films.
Yeah, it's fucking unhinged, man. It's like this is like the type of thing I imagine would happen if you took a bunch of psychedelics and like just pounded a huge bottle of Robitussin or something, like you're just having a bad day on some other plane of existence, kind of a thing. I can see though how it could unravel into some kind of a story, especially knowing some context about the people behind it and whatnot. All I sort of knew was that it's based off of a manga, obviously, which I
Yeah.
assume would be more like a comic strip, just with the context that it's presented here without dialogue and just a bunch of weirdness. Um,
It it probably was a one shot book. I have not read the book that it's based off of, but I would imagine it'd be a one shot, maybe 4 panel manga book.
right. It's something I wouldn't mind looking at some point, just based on how strange this is. But yeah, I'm not sure what the fuck I looked at with this. What was it about? Did they? I mean, I was theorizing all sorts of things, like maybe that fried tofu they ate was somehow it had gone bad, so they just died or had like some trip or something. Uh, and then they get more at the end, and then they finally die. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in this thing. There's a lot of bizarre imagery, great soundtrack. Absolutely loved, like, I guess just the sound design or whatever as a whole was pretty cool with this thing. It sort of
Oh,
has to be
absolutely.
to keep you locked in there.
Oh, it's fantastic artistically, as far as I'm concerned. But it does have some depth to it. But like most art, a lot of the depth is up to interpretation, and that's fine. I think some of the best art leaves it up to interpretation at the end of the day.
For sure. I could definitely see people watching this and being like not stoked on it, but I think that they would have a reaction to it one way or another, which is probably the point. Uh, I like that it kind of leaves it open to just hearing you guys already briefly mention it. It has me intrigued to give it, multiple viewings so that I can try to unravel that shit myself or spot what you guys are talking about. So what would you say is like the story of the thing?
So the interpretation, and again, Brittany, you can correct me on some of this as well. if I'm wrong on this. Again, I don't know if there is really a wrong answer here, but so one of the, and I've looked at it. There is the thought process. There's a couple thought processes. One of which is that it's about a younger brother and his sister, and that the younger brother notices that the sister has died, and it's a journey about saving his sister's soul, which he partially saves. It gets ripped in half at the beginning, and then reviving the rest, and that's the journey that they undertake. But there's also an element of it where you could say that the younger brother died drowning in the bathtub at the very beginning, and there's the thought that all of this is just him having a kind of fever dream, and that the end where everybody cuts off is just the final darkness of the brother succumbing completely to death. The brighter image to that, because that's a slightly dark image, would be to say that the brother kind of, while the brother was temporarily dead, he was able to save part of his sister's soul, and that the father revived the brother, and then they went on this journey, and then the ending was just a creative way to end it. But those are the two ways of looking at it.
I got on this viewing. I got a third view.
Okay.
One that it represents death, but it represents the death of imagination. That because once we get through all the imaginative story arc, we have the brother sort of telling the story to the family. And then once the brother goes to the bathroom, the family disappears, one after another. So we're getting a view of the world through the brother's eyes, and then once he gets away and leaves sort of the picture, his family vanishes one at a time. So we're getting his sort of telling a story, but the rest of the family just doesn't care. And it's sort of that death of imagination, and that you kind of need to have some childlike imagination to interpret, a story. And the brother wanted to go out and save his sister, and even his sister's kind of like, yeah, sure. So I get that as a third possible intention, but you're pretty right on when it's because the read through from the artist is that it's the brother going to save the sister's soul. And going through basically heaven and hell and different interpretations. I mean, we have elephants, we have giant whale, we have dried up earth to a complete water world that they go through. It's just a weird fantascape.
Sort of like almost like What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, where there's in all those different like watercolor layers of the afterlife or whatever, and it gets more insane progressively as he descends down into it,
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I could see all that. I guess I was definitely wasn't far off base with the idea that somehow one or both of them could or likely was dead. Because definitely that little girl was like laying in the bed too at the beginning, and he like takes that piece of the soul, I guess, that he recaptures, and it like goes into her mouth. So that's like the first half of it acquired kind of a thing.
Actually, one of the things I really liked about it is I didn't have to get through the interpretation the first time I saw it. I just enjoyed watching it for the fact it was strange and screwy. I mean, a good example, there are several editions of the DVD release. I actually gave away one of them. I don't know who I gave it away to. Did I give it to you, Brittany? I don't know who I gave it to.
I don't remember.
But I had basically, because it's sadly out of print, there were two editions that were made of it, DVD-wise. One is a standard that has the kind of poster that we're seeing here. And the other one has this red liquid in it, and it has like the two cats floating in the red liquid on the plastic cover, which is the one I have. And I had found a second copy. Jacob was lucky enough to find the first copy really cheap, and then I have been like, well, crap. And then I was able to finally find a copy, and it's great having one. But yeah, just in general, it's a very weird one. And I watched this originally back to back with Dead Leaves, which I might have to have on this channel as well, because that's a screwy one as well. Not as deep in some ways, but definitely as crazy.
Yeah, that's one I'm like at least familiar with from the title and like the cover art or whatever. I feel like I stumbled on it at some point, or my brother had it maybe. And I feel like I was always sort of curious about it because it looks odd from what I remember.
I know that's another one, Brittany, that you've seen. At least I think you've seen Dead
Yeah.
Leaves.
I've seen Dead Leaves, and I mean another film this reminds me about. That's an anime. That's a short, and that you can also find on YouTube, but you're not going to find it anywhere else except for a museum. Is the animation Jump? It's from Tezuka, who is the creator, basically the man that they state is the grandfather of anime. He created Astro Boy, a couple of the other notable characters. He just told the world from a kid just jumping and just jumping higher and higher and higher all the way throughout the story. And it's just a nice little short sort of animation. No real talking, but yeah. Goes into the fanciful, going around the world, seeing different things, and ending with the kid literally being in hell and the devil's flipping their body up and down.
Oh,
yeah. But did it have a baby basically reaching its hand out of its mother with a pistol in hand to help in a gunfight?
I can't wait.
No, but I mean, in going back to the movie at hand, we're on here. I have to say, I have to question. Is it cannibalism if you eat your own body parts?
Oh, that is true.
Which we see with the pig. They feed them the pig himself, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
All because they didn't want to eat the fish that had eaten the cat's dropping. He was like, "Hey, I found all this fish. No, I think we're going to eat you." And he's already got all of the parts marked on him for consumption.
Dude, there's a lot of weird stuff with food in this too. Like there's a part where they're riding on like like a dog's back, and he like whacks it on the head with the club, and then like shaves one of the lumps off with a knife and tries to eat it, and then throws up.
That's the pig. That is the pig they went. And I guess it's because he was running out of lumps to give. That's when they decided to beat him to death. Which, my gosh, that was there's a lot of this stuff can get bugged. So
yeah, there's some surprisingly brutal stuff in there, like that magic show where they cross section that chick and then put her back together or whatever.
Well, basically, God showing off his power, and that because you see God come back later as he's cutting the world in half, stopping time, and then having time come back. It's a really weird and surreal scene.
He looks pretty rad too, like a strange wizard or something, which I guess is probably what God would be if he exists.
I mean, it's the grander vision of God is the flowing white beard, white hair, wizardly like look to them. Over more modern interpretations like South Park, where he's a pink hippopotamus.
Yeah.
His band. Of course, that's a spoiler, though.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And then there's like, what's the whole deal with the guy in the weird house, like out in the woods or whatever, that puts on the gimp gear and tries to cook them in the fucking pot or whatever?
Well, that's where you get your name for a title, Draw the Cat Soup. So
it's true, but how does that fit into this? Is he just what does that represent anything, or is it just awesome and weird?
That's just more weirdo thing. Oh, go ahead.
I would say if it's artistically representing anything, it's the consumption and perversion of Japanese culture, because he's sort of this sort of stereotypical figure that Japanese artists tend to draw these days of either a gay businessman or an obese, sort of spoily, corrupt businessman in Japanese culture. Sort of, they go with that sort of bald with a little bit of fat, big, bulbous cheeks.
I mean, yeah, the guy clearly enjoyed the torture of whatever he was cooking, and of course, revealing at the end that he's actually mechanical at the end when they reveal underneath like the skull cap. But yeah, I mean that thing with the bird. I mean, if you look at all the cross sections of people that they show, and animals that they see as they're going in, and how he prepares the meal for the two cats with the bird going around in circles and setting it on fire as it's flying. I mean, my goodness.
That was unhinged, man. That's like it's it's not for kids. I think right around that point for sure.
Well, I mean, cutting up with a woman, the first part came up before it. I'd probably be turning it off at that point. Yeah.
It's probably out of sequence for me because it was first viewing and it's just so insane. But
well, it's great for multiple viewings just because it's one of those that the more you watch it, the more you understand it, because as you start getting over the this is messed up feeling, the more you're able to get into the meanings behind, or
see how it fits together as an actual narrative kind of a thing. Because even just as you guys were describing it, it's like, yeah, I could see how that works. They give you enough as the weirdness is gradually building up that you kind of get an idea of enough of it that yeah, I can see how either of those things you guys described as like a way to look at it could be the case. But I'm sure there's things depending on how you view it that's going to point more towards one or the other. So definitely one I'm going to be giving repeated viewings to just for that.
Even to this day, when that guy comes out in that BDSM geared stuff with the big shears, that still takes me back. Takes me aback. And
oh man, yeah. Oh. That GIMP mask I think has like Mickey ears on it too.
That's just
yeah. He was wearing a mouse mask, so yeah.
Yeah, it's gnarly, man. I don't know. And then the water elephant thing I really liked just because I don't know why I like that so much. I guess that one cat did dive into its butthole, so that's.
It was definitely unique. There were two elephants. We had the gold elephant and then we had the water elephant. And the water elephant, I agree, it's definitely one of the more interesting sort of takes on, because they keep having to bring it back to life and dig a hole for it to get new water.
Right.
And the whole of it, I feel like this is something that I could see, because they like to reimagine and remake everything these days. I could see them remaking this into a series and having a lot of these adventures be episodes. Like, I would love to see something, a dedication to that final mechanical place that they find the flower that's used to kind of bring the sister's soul back restore the sister's soul entirety, which they hint at that being the solution at the beginning, which I did like that, but that'd be an interesting thing to see episodes like that.
Yeah, I could fuck with that. It'd probably do real well on like Adult Swim, even if the episodes were each only like 15 minutes or something. That'd be cool. It also reminds me of a lot of like indie games I've played that have came out since, kind of have similar vibes to this in a certain way. There's a lot of those dreamy kind of just random indie games out there that go for the whole surreal nightmare dreamland type vibe, and I feel like this would translate real well as that too, like a platformer or something, where each of these is like a level in the game.
This be an awesome platformer.
Yeah, it'd be insane, you know.
Oh, get away from the crazy guy.
Yeah, it's definitely not getting an E rating or whatever with that gimp suit, but it's, you know, I think it'd do well. Because there's a lot of people like shit like this. My kid plays a lot of games that have like, albeit a less insane vibe to them, but a similar sort of just tone, I guess, to that weird. Is it a nightmare or is it a fun dream kind of a thing going on? Yeah, I don't know. Just that's something I definitely took away from it. Um,
Most assuredly. So
it's honestly kind of surprising to me that this isn't just like on Tubi or anything like that too, because they have a lot of like weird older anime on there sometimes. But I did not even check if it was on there as well as YouTube.
I know it's been on YouTube forever and a day because I know that's where I first saw it way back.
It's definitely interesting.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I definitely would say, yeah, it should be on Tubi if Tubi has, because yeah, Tubi does have a collection of weird ones, old ones out there.
Yeah, as soon as like I saw even like the cover there, it looked like the type of thing that you'd stumble on Tubi. I'm glad that it's just freely available on YouTube, though. It makes it easy to show people, and with such a short runtime, it's not a big ask to ask someone to check it out, and it's not a big commitment for them to give it a go. So, worst case scenario, you come out of it and you're like, that was a little too weird for me. But if you like weird and bizarre shit, I feel like you're probably gonna be in the same boat I am, where it's you're looking forward to future viewings of it. I also really do like the design of the little cat characters. They're adorable. It's real simple. I like their big eyes. I don't know. I'm a sucker for that kind of crap.
Actually, for the simplicity of the art style, I was very impressed by the quality of the animation.
Yes. And it knew where to like, because most of it stayed pretty simple, but I think that was to keep you like rooted in the main characters. But the other weird stuff was like more complex, and some of it almost reminded me of like the art that you would see in like, I don't know, like Perfect Blue or something like that. Just on certain characters or images that showed up in the film. But then most of it was pretty simple or just bizarre enough that it could be simply drawn or whatever, but still be impressive to look at. But the fluidness of a lot of the animation was really nice, I felt like.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of transformative animation in this that made this just sort of flow from one scene to the next and not really have a hard cutaway to a scene.
Yeah. And it really kind of feels even shorter than it is, if I'm honest. Because it just does flow so quickly, and it's paced. I mean, I don't know if it's paced perfectly, but it probably is, yeah, for what it's trying to do. You don't ever feel like there's like moments of boredom. By the time you might get tired of seeing like one weird thing that's happening, they're moving into the next fucking insane thing that's going to be taking place,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much, it's almost a movie that, outside of just saying what you think it might be about, it almost defies like discussion or description. You just have to watch it.
Well, I figured it would be a fairly quick discussion because it's just one to basically that can open up discussions about meanings. And even when I look at videos that people go into their thoughts on this film, they rarely go past like 10, 20 minutes because it's, well, I mean, like I say, it's a very short film. And the meanings can have a lot of depth, especially if you think about it and you look at the author itself. I mean, the author herself had some very difficult times. And and you could see some of that struggle probably in that as well. which is sad because I'd love to have seen more work as things go on. I would have loved to have seen more of these type of ideas flourish over time.
Was this the only thing that she did?
I don't know. Do you know of anything else by this author that did the manga for this?
Not too much. I try and let me see if I can pull something up real quick here on this. I pulled
'Cause I know
stuff up last night, so
I know they did a name change at one point too, which I didn't go in depth into the person other than I knew what happened to them and that they had a lot of troubled as far as mental health history, as far as depression and stuff like that.
well, I mean, we've talked about this before. The mental health industry in Japan have not been, all that great for years. But let's see. The artist, Jory. Let's see. I'm trying to see. Pretty much, this is it. Cat Soup. She worked with a comedy duo, but yeah, this is pretty much it.
It's tragic, but I'd be lying if I said it doesn't. Stuff like that doesn't also add a bit of like further mystery to something weird, some weird piece of art like this, because it's like, what of their torments is like subtly hidden in there. Brandon, wasn't there like some schizophrenic dude who did like these? It's pretty well known, I guess, in like art or whatever, the art world. But he did like all these gnarly paintings of what was like going on in his head or something a lot of the time. And then he ended up like committing suicide too, I think. So it's like, I mean, the paintings are still crazy to look at when he was alive, I'm sure. But with him gone, it's like, what hidden meaning could we learn? What could we learn about what he was really going through from this, or how it progressed to that end stage?
You got a lot of art that way.
Okay, I did catch up on one thing. A lot of her sequences are brought up from psychedelics, so it explains a lot.
Nice.
She's quoted as saying that most food tasted like blood, also. So.
I feel like I've heard about that. I feel like I've heard something like that before. Not specifically blood, but that like they couldn't eat anything because all the food tasted like not real or something like that.
I mean, that's pretty much what she had a problem with. From what I was just doing through a quick read, she said avocado tasted like the inside of a pig carcass.
Yeah, it's definitely you can tell that there's like a sort of a little underlying theme of food being like not a pleasant experience in this film. Yeah, that's wild.
I mean, you've got a lot of artists that use mental health within their stuff. I mean, music-wise, you got like Daniel Johnston. You've got Wesley Willis. There's another one that left too soon. Artists like that definitely, like Wesley Willis, definitely had schizophrenia, and a lot of his strange but very memorable work. I mean, like Birdman Kicked My Ass, for instance. Or, we're very well inspired by that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when that stuff happens to people, but it's, if they could, like, definitely she left behind something pretty interesting here that, has probably been a good conversation piece for a lot of people. I mean, I don't know if it's a wildly popular short film or anything like that. You guys would know better on that than I.
It was popular around the 90s when anime was starting, but and by popular I mean it was one of those sort of underground talked about films to watch, but not really, one of the great things that you saw people passing around and being like, hey, have you checked this out? It's more like, hey, you want to see something weird? Check it out.
Yeah.
I want to say that today, the only time you'll run across Cat Soup is if you're looking at a list of, strangest anime or just strange things in general. Usually that'll hit the list, but it's known more for its strangeness than its depth, which is kind of sad in a lot of ways because it does have a lot of depth and a lot of potential. Like I say, I think that this is something that could be revisited and revived. I've never read the manga, but I imagine that there was probably a lot more going on in the manga that would have explained more things. And
Oh yeah, I would imagine so. I feel like there's like a subsection of TikTok teens or whatever that this would be big with too, because my kid's into a lot of like weird, strange stuff, sort of in the vein of this and then apparently there's like huge followings for that stuff on TikTok, you know. So if you broke this up into several clips and uploaded it on there, it'd probably do pretty well just for like random snippets of bizarre scenery, you know. I'd have to get a list off her. She's good.
Psychedelics are becoming the big thing again. So I mean, hey, I can't imagine watching this film on psychedelics, but hey.
It makes you feel like you're on them already when you're just watching it straight. So I imagine you got to be real careful watching this on psychedelics. Just go with a friend, you know, buddy system. Yeah, man. I don't know. You guys got any favorite scenes you want to give honorable mention to before we close this out? I think we've talked about it as much as we can, really.
My favorite is when the brother first leaves the house to go after his sister's soul, and you have the three women, sort of cat women, just talking, and then he just pulls the plug on one and just deflates it.
Oh yeah.
Just keep going.
Like, did he kill her? What happened there? You know, just commits a casual murder on his way out the door.
Well, I mean, one could say that, you know, people like that are just full with hot air. That there's only a surface level to most of the people there. So once you get that out, then there's not much left.
Oh yeah, and they did seem to be like the gossiping, you know, old maids of the neighborhood or whatever. So her being full of air makes some sense, you know.
But which, by the way, you don't really need subtitles for, like, there's like a little bit in this it's subtitle, but really and truly, you could watch this straight on and not need anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only dialogue is buying tofu, and I think the part where he says "what muck" or whatever after he throws up the pig knobs or whatever. I can't think of anything else that was dialogue based. And that's hardly dialogue. That's just, you know, like they make a noise and they decided to put a text so you know what the noise meant once or twice.
I mean, shoot, you have a scene where the pig basically bites the one cat's hand off, and they go in and they find somebody in the desert to sew it back on again. And it's just sort of like a nonchalant thing. Yeah. It's like, oh, my arm's off. No, it isn't.
She's also sewing together a bunch of other people.
Yeah, like these weird, like, homunculuses.
Yeah, that shit was gnarly. I think my favorite scene's probably the cat soup scene with the dude in the gimp mask. It's just such an abruptly, somehow weirder thing than even what I feel like I'd seen up to that point. And the whole buildup of like the tension with that dude was weird too. Like you said, walking down the hallway and seeing like all the human centipede style photos on the walls and shit, you know. They were, you knew they were in for something rough, like just being let in there, you know. So I like that a lot. And his mechanical brain cap thing that he had going on, that was pretty cool. That's probably my vote for favorite, but I liked all of it, to be honest. And there was relatively few of them, but there is like moments of calm throughout their journey for a moment, you know. And it's odd how relaxing the movie kind of is at the same time as being like just insane, you know. Just bizarre and insane, but it's also kind of like a chill experience kicking back and just watching it, you know. It's got like a hypnotic quality to it, I guess.
Yeah.
What about, did you have a favorite scene overall, Brandon?
I think pretty much. I like the whole part where they find the flower in the clockwork area when they're back in the boat, because God has rewound time essentially. So they're back in the boat, sans pig, and end up in that weird clockwork area. And there's something imaginative about it. But the whole thing is just really imaginative and creative. Like I say, I think this would make it interesting if you fleshed out each area into like a 15-minute episode, and
Yeah, I'm behind that.
and just sort of like an adventures thing at the end.
Yeah, I think that would be rad. I'd look
Sure.
forward to those eagerly each time, even if it was just the same thing, just expanded on. You know,
Some of
what's
those
that?
would be very quick anyway. Like, I mean, like for instance, that circus scene, you could easily expand that to 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think all of it really. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to just add in more assorted weirdness. You know. So yeah, if they wanted to do an extended cut of this thing, that would be dope. I just hope that they keep a similar style animation and don't do it like, I don't know. They just need to keep it weird, old school and weird, and I'd be hyped on that. So yeah, I don't know. You guys got anything you want to plug?
This time, not really.
Yeah, I don't really have anything myself coming up, but we do have our, once Cody's back from vacation, we're going to be talking about Joel Wynkoop's Lost Faith. And then a couple weeks after that, we've got our Face Melt features, double feature of short films there with Night of the Axe and Spirit Board Doorway to Death. Those are going to be pretty fun. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that this was a good time. It was interesting hearing your guys's takes on this or possible, interpretations of it. It's given me a lot to think about. Definitely curious to check out the manga. As we've pointed out several times, this is just freely available on YouTube. So if you guys are curious, set aside. I think it's really more like 30 minutes. I think the last 3 minutes are like the credits and shit. So half hour, you can get this in the bag, and tell us in the comments below what you think it might be about. Cheers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next.